Jean-Pierre Labaguette was once a king of cuisine, rising from a humble French bistro in New York to a Michelin-starred empire. He was recruited to be U.S. president by the Republicans. He became U.S. president until he was hit by scandals and escaped to France. Back in Lyon, he reopened his childhood restaurant, Chez Labaguette, only to find a France that had changed. Fast food replaced fine dining, and tradition was no longer in style. Refusing to conform, he launched a bold menu, L'Âme de la France, reviving unapologetically classic dishes that sparked both praise and criticism. Then, in a twist no one saw coming, President Donald Trump granted him a public pardon, igniting media frenzy and giving Jean-Pierre the opportunity to return to America. As the news played in the quiet of his rustic kitchen, Jean-Pierre took a slow bite of his tarte tatin. Weeks later, Jean-Pierre landed at JFK to a media storm and a personal welcome from Trump, who announced plans to reopen Chez Labaguette in Manhattan, with Jean-Pierre at the helm. Chez Labaguette opened in New York's Upper West Side, blending French tradition with American flair. After reopening Chez Labaguette, Jean-Pierre felt his family needed a break from the restaurant and their complicated past. He suggested a vacation, and after some debate, safaris, vineyards, beaches, they settled on a Caribbean sailing trip. 2 weeks later, they arrived in St. Martin, where their sleek sailboat, the Privilege, and its charming skipper, Larry, awaited them. Jean-Pierre was polite but guarded, while Sylvie felt an unexpected spark. Days on the water brought laughter, snorkeling, and sun-drenched beaches, gradually softening everyone's edges. Jean-Pierre warmed to Larry's skill and calm, while Sylvie struggled to hide her growing admiration. Jean-Pierre Labaguette and his family are enjoying a peaceful Caribbean evening aboard their luxury yacht, the Privilege, off the coast of St. Martin, watching fireworks light up the sky. Their serenity is shattered when a low-flying plane circles them and drops duffel bags into the sea, one landing directly on their deck. Inside, their skipper, Larry, discovers it's packed with cocaine. Tension rises as a speedboat approaches, and a man named Pedro Muscobar, a Colombian drug trafficker, boards the yacht demanding his cargo. Jean-Pierre quickly hides the bag, but before violence erupts, the Coast Guard arrives, prompting Pedro and his crew to retreat. What began as a dream vacation becomes a high-stakes brush with danger, leaving the Labaguette family shaken and caught in the shadows of the drug trade. After discovering a bag of cocaine aboard the Privilege, Jean-Pierre's family is torn apart by temptation. His children dream of opening a beachside bistro. Larry wants a bigger boat, and Sylvie demands her share and moves in with Larry, defying Jean-Pierre's warnings about danger and death. Old resentments surface, betrayals are laid bare, and despite Jean-Pierre's pleas, the others choose greed. The next morning, Jean-Pierre walks away with his children, while Sylvie remains on the boat, her face heavy with sadness. Jean-Pierre, clutching the bag, made his way to the shabby Office des Douanes. He admitted to carrying cocaine for the infamous Pedro Muscobar. The officer, alarmed, ordered him to return it. "You've just made us targets too." At Panama Airport, a customs officer nearly searched the bag until a dog's bark diverted attention. "Just go," the officer muttered. In Colombia, Jean-Pierre wasn't so lucky. The drugs were found. Cocaine into Colombia? The agents scoffed. But the customs boss had a plan. "Go to Medellin, find Muscobar, then call me." Outside, agents slipped a tracker into his bag. Jean-Pierre boarded a flight, no longer trying to do the right thing. Now it was about staying alive. In a Bogota hotel, Jean-Pierre stares out at the beauty of Usaquén, haunted by the name Pedro Mascobar. He roams the markets, asking strangers. Every mention of Mascobar brings silence and fear. Alone, Jean-Pierre can't sleep, so he decides to go out. He questions a taxi driver. At Mascobar's name, the car stops. "Get out," the driver mutters, terrified. At a buzzing salsa club, Jean-Pierre is approached by a woman, Sandra. They drink. Sandra flirts. Jean-Pierre finally opens up. "I made a mistake, a big one, and someone's paying for it." Sandra listens. They leave from the club and get a taxi. In a night charged with desire, secrets, and forbidden comparisons, Jean-Pierre and Sandra surrender to passion. After a night together, Sandra asks Jean-Pierre to help her get to the US. In return, she offers to take him to Pedro Mascobar. Upon arrival, they travel from the airport to Guatapé, then by helicopter deeper into the jungle. Mid-flight, Jean-Pierre is hooded and taken to Mascobar's hidden finca. There, Mascobar confronts him about the missing drugs. Jean-Pierre claims some were lost, but Mascobar insists he'll stay until everything is recovered. After Sandra reveals Jean-Pierre's background as a former president and a cook, Mascobar forces him to cook, turning the finca into a culinary haven. Mascobar discovers the GPS in the bag, retaliating by bombing the customs office with a drone. Back at the finca, Mascobar reveals his true ambition: to become president of Colombia, and demands Jean-Pierre's help to achieve it. Months into his captivity at Mascobar's finca, Mascobar proposes a bold idea. He wants help to become president of South America. Jean-Pierre agrees under one condition. His involvement lasts only 1 year and 1 day. To gain cartel support, Mascobar hosts a grand banquet. Jean-Pierre introduces narco cuisine. The elite guests are captivated. Mascobar reveals his campaign plan: legalize and tax illegal trades to fund national infrastructure. With the slogan, "Make Antioquia Great Again," Mascobar's populist movement sweeps the nation. Promising change and infrastructure, he captures the hearts of a weary people and wins. Sylvie thought life with Larry would be a romantic adventure. They bought a sleek catamaran, the Privilege II, and began chartering trips between St. Martin and St. Barth. But Larry changed. He became a lazy, domineering captain, leaving Sylvie to do all the work while he drank and ignored her. When Hurricane Emmanuel approached, Sylvie warned Larry, but he dismissed her. A massive wave struck, snapping his harness and throwing him to the deck. Injured and in pain, he barked orders while Sylvie took control of the boat, steering it through the chaos to safety. The catamaran crashed into the dock, battered by the storm. Sailors helped rescue Larry, and he was rushed to the hospital. Sylvie stood alone, soaked and shaken, knowing the storm wasn't over. Elsewhere, Hurricane Emmanuel destroyed Grand Case. Siblings Patrick and Jacqueline watched their restaurant crumble under the storm's force, vowing to rebuild from the ruins. Aftermath of Hurricane Emmanuel Street, Martin lies in ruins. Jacqueline and Patrick grieve as they inspect what remains of their destroyed restaurant. Jean-Pierre arranges for Mascobar to send a private jet to evacuate them. They're taken to Mascobar's grand estate. Inside, Patrick notices photos of the crime lord with infamous figures. Mascobar greets them warmly but soon turns serious, reminding Jean-Pierre of his debt. "Your debt is theirs now." At dinner, Mascobar unveils his plan: Create a restaurant empire serving Ormegas colonas, giant edible ants. He offers full funding but makes one thing clear: refusal is not an option. The siblings reluctantly agree, knowing they're trapped. As the sun set over the finca, Jean-Pierre cleaned the kitchen when he saw a familiar figure, Sylvie, walking toward the house, exhausted and disheveled. Shocked, he rushed to her. She tells that she had lost everything, the boat, the money, and came to him with nowhere else to go. Jean-Pierre comforted her and introduced her to Sandra and tells her that he has changed and that he loves Sandra. The next morning, Sylvie approached Muscobar on the terrace. Dressed with grace and charm, she seduced him with subtle confidence. Muscobar, intrigued, begins to see Sylvie as more than a guest. They shared drinks and exchanged ideas about power, legacy, and rebuilding. Meanwhile, his opponents use mercenaries to attack the finca. With Jean-Pierre's help, Sylvie and Sandra escape into the jungle. Officers cuffed them both. Jean-Pierre and Muscobar are imprisoned together. Muscobar sees it all as Act 2 of their saga. The warden offers Jean-Pierre a deal to improve the prison kitchen. Jean-Pierre transforms the food, impressing both guards and inmates. Jean-Pierre realizes he's cooking his way into control and deeper into the game. Jean-Pierre and Muscobar learn they're being transferred to a harsher prison. With no time to waste, they plan an escape. Jean-Pierre bakes cookies laced with scopolamine to sedate the guards. Meanwhile, Muscobar secures disguises, wigs, and dresses. That night, the guards unknowingly eat the cookies and collapse. Dressed as women, Jean-Pierre and Muscobar sneak past security and escape. Outside, a contact picks them up. They flee to Jean-Pierre's family restaurant in Bogotá, where his children welcome him back. In a shabby Bogotá safe house, Jean-Pierre, Muscobar, Jacqueline, and Patrick debate their next move. The authorities are closing in, and staying in Colombia is no longer an option. Jacqueline suggests Russia, Venezuela, and finally, Thailand. Jean-Pierre warms to the idea of quietly working in a restaurant there. But escaping won't be easy. Airports are risky. Muscobar proposes smuggling out using fake identities and contacts who can bypass borders. It's dangerous, but their best shot. The safe house in Bogotá was a grim, flickering refuge, barely masking the desperation of the fugitives within. They need a physical changes to escape. Muscobar arranged for plastic surgery through a discreet, elite surgeon, Dr. Cardoza. They set their sights on Brazil, lured by its lax extradition policies and vibrant chaos. To blend in, they had to become Brazilian, learn the language, cook the food, and dance the samba. To avoid extradition, Muscobar proposed Argentina as their next hideout, citing its chaotic politics and economic instability. They enrolled in classes to adopt the local accent. The team began tango lessons, embracing the dance as a cultural key to blending into Argentine society under Valeria's strict guidance. At a shady plastic surgery clinic, Jean-Pierre is pressured by Muscobar to choose a new face, and Jean-Pierre hesitantly selects one. Just before the surgery begins, Jean-Pierre turns on the surgeon, injecting him with the sedative meant for himself. He quickly subdues the nurse, ties her up, and disguises himself in the surgeon's coat. Slipping out unnoticed, Jean-Pierre hails a taxi to the U.S. consulate. Gaining entry through clever manipulation and an elaborate story, he seeks asylum, and the U.S. consul agrees to temporarily shelter him. While in hiding, Jean-Pierre cooks for embassy staff. His culinary talent becomes his refuge and wins over the team. One afternoon, the ambassador informed Jean-Pierre of a dangerous mission, a way out of the country on a submarine. Jean-Pierre declined, weary from his past and uninterested in another dangerous assignment. Time passed and the Colombian government's pursuit seemed to ease. The protests in front of the embassy dwindled. At the embassy, Jean-Pierre was shown a woman through a tinted window, Sandra. She was being hunted by Muscobar and had no chance of escaping legally. The ambassador offered a new deal: protect Sandra during the mission, and she'd receive safety and residency in return. Jean-Pierre agreed. Soon after, he and Sandra boarded a submarine manned by Latin American Navy SEALs disguised as drug smugglers. After days submerged, they surfaced near the shadowy shores of Tortuga, ready to begin the mission. Muscobar and Sylvie escape from Bogota into the dense, dangerous jungle. The terrain is treacherous. Thick vines, mud, and relentless insects hinder their progress. Esteban, their silent, capable guide, leads them expertly through the jungle. A deadly fer-de-lance snake is encountered and swiftly killed by Esteban. The group reaches a powerful, fast-moving river blocking their path. Esteban prepares a rope for a guided crossing and instructs them on safety. Sylvie nearly drowns during the crossing but is saved by Muscobar. Nightfall brings a new kind of danger: darkness, predators, and psychological stress. Esteban builds a small fire and organizes shifts for staying alert. Strange sounds echo through the forest, unknown, possibly threatening. By the third day, they are physically and mentally depleted. Esteban leads them in silence, pressing forward into deeper jungle territory. Panama City is bustling with energy and corruption, a haven for offshore wealth and criminal enterprises. Muscobar and Sylvie move through the streets toward a secret meeting. They arrive at Gomez and Associates, a firm known for handling offshore dealings. Suspicion lingers, but they proceed, knowing it's their only chance to disappear. Inside the firm, Eduardo Gomez greets them, confident and well-connected. Muscobar offers a cash payment for new identities, bank accounts, and full disappearances. As the final paperwork is completed, federal agents storm the office. Gomez is arrested for money laundering and conspiracy, but Muscobar and Sylvie were able to escape. At the foggy docks, they hide behind containers. Suddenly, a battered submarine surfaces. Juan, an old associate of Muscobar, awaits them aboard the Sancho Panza. With authorities closing in, they board the sub to escape. Juan seals the hatch and prepares for a silent run. Coast Guard patrols are scanning the waters. A sudden jolt signals depth charges. The sub dives deeper to avoid them. Sonar pings indicate they're being hunted. Juan launches a decoy flare torpedo to distract the pursuers. The Coast Guard takes the bait, allowing the sub to evade detection, temporarily. Hours later, the sub surfaces near a chain of Caribbean islands. Juan and Muscobar search for a safe docking location. Muscobar proposes several options, claiming favors from powerful political allies. A submarine quietly approaches the Haitian coastline under the cover of night. They deploy an inflatable raft and paddle silently to shore. Upon landing, they hide the raft and prepare for travel through the jungle. With a crude map and flashlight, they begin their cautious inland trek before dawn. As they near the village, strange whistles echo around them, signals. They're surrounded by armed men led by a scarred warlord known as Fate National, the new president of Haiti, sometimes called Uncle Doc. They're loaded into a truck and taken away under heavy guard. Now prisoners in a decrepit warehouse, Sylvie and Musk Kobar are restrained and watched. Escape seems impossible as their fate remains uncertain. Elsewhere, Jean-Pierre and Sylvie reach to Haiti with DEA agents aboard a submarine. They meet with Fate National for a drug deal, give him scopolamine-laced cookies, and capture him to bring him back to the United States. Trump welcomes them as heroes for bringing Fate National to justice. Back in New York, Jean-Pierre immerses himself in his restaurant. Then, one cold evening, Sylvie unexpectedly returns. She looks exhausted and full of regret for the mistakes she made. Jean-Pierre listens, but his heart has moved on. He chooses Sandra. Jean-Pierre closes the door on his past and steps fully into the life he has rebuilt with his Latin fiancée, Sandra.